Chapter 5162. I've long heard of the Yama Lord's name. I didn't expect to see him ascend today. I'm sure the Empress and the Phoenix Master will be here too. Of course. When a great emperor ascends, everyone will come to congratulate him. Not only will the Empress and the Phoenix Master come, I think the other hidden great emperors will also come to congratulate him personally. I haven't seen such a grand occasion in a long time. I'm really looking forward to it. The crowd chatted outside the Deity Island. They wanted to enter the island to pay a visit. However, the Deity Island was covered with a barrier. Without the Yama Lord's permission, they did not dare to enter. At that moment, someone exclaimed, "Look!" Everyone looked in the direction of the exclamation and saw a whirlpool appear in the void. Then, a red figure walked out of the whirlpool. There were a few people behind her. It's the Phoenix Master. Greetings, Phoenix Master. Greetings, Phoenix Master. The crowd regained their senses and quickly lowered their heads. They did not dare to look at her face. Instead, they bowed respectfully. Fingzhou looked at the crowd and smiled faintly. She said, "Today is the day my husband ascends and the day the Deity Island is completed. I don't think he has time to meet all of you. Everyone, please go back for now. After a while, I will send out an invitation to all of you to congratulate me." Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. They couldn't help but look at each other in surprise. Then, they hurriedly cupped their fists and said, "Yes, we will follow the Phoenix Master's orders. We will first congratulate the King of Hell on his ascension. In the future, we will bring gifts to congratulate you." Fengzhou nodded. She watched as they bowed and left one after another. Then, she looked at the immortal island in front of her, and a gentle smile appeared on her face. Just as she was about to step forward, Xianyuanmos, who was on the enchanted island, seemed to have sensed her arrival. The enchantment of the enchanted island opened, and a black figure slowly walked out from the gate of immortality. Xianyuanmos was dressed in a low-key yet luxurious black robe. His entire body exuded a powerful aura. He walked over slowly, and when his gaze landed on Fengzhou, he revealed a gentle and affectionate smile. "Ah, Zhou, I'm here as promised." As he spoke, he walked up to her, took her hand, and pulled her into his arms. "It's good that you're here." Fengzhou smiled happily and wrapped her arms around his waist. Her heart was filled with joy. "Congratulations on your ascension, Master." Hui Lang and Ying Yi stepped forward and cupped their hands and congratulated him. "Congratulations on your ascension, Yama Lord." Du Fan and Lang Shuang also stepped forward and congratulated him with smiles. Fengzhou only brought a few people with him. The others stayed on the Deity Island to make arrangements. Xianyuanmos looked at them and nodded slightly. Then, he said to Fengzhou, who had retreated from his arms, "Ah, Zhou, you came at the right time. I was just about to merge this Deity Island with the one you're on now." They were husband and wife. Now that they had both ascended, it was natural for them to merge their places. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and said, "I was thinking the same thing." As she spoke, she took his hand and walked with him to the Deity Island while talking about the merger. Behind them, Du Fan, Ling Shuang, Hui Lang, and Ying Yi looked at each other and followed them. A few days later. Chapter 5163. Since he couldn't get to the mountain pass, he stopped and looked at the place filled with clouds and mist. A deep thought flashed through his mind. He had heard that the cloud sky mountain of the Qing Emperor was shrouded in clouds all year round, making it difficult to find the entrance of the mountain. He did not expect it to be true. He had never been here before. Even if he went around, he would not be able to find the way up the mountain. So, with a thought, he mobilized the spiritual energy in his body, and a voice that contained spiritual energy echoed in the air. I am Xiao Junyan, here to visit the Qing Emperor. Please meet me. The voice that contained the aura of spirit power spread through the clouds and naturally entered the ears of the Azure the Arch, who was on Cloud Sky Mountain. At this moment, the Qing Emperor was reading a book on the soft couch under the tree. When he heard the voice, he raised his head and looked down the mountain. Xiao Junyan. His deep voice carried some indifference. His deep eyes flashed, as if he was thinking about who this Xiao Junyan was. He closed the book that was originally open in his hand and casually placed it aside. Xiao Junyan. The young man that Cloud 7 met in the Xiao family's territory a few years ago. He raised his eyebrows, as if surprised that the young master of the Xiao family, Xiao Yunyan, would find this place. He lay on the soft couch leisurely and his deep voice fell into the ears of Xiao Junyan at the foot of the mountain. I have some friendship with the Roaring Sky Emperor. As for you, Xiao Junyan, a mere young master of the Xiao family, what right do you have for me to meet you? At the foot of the mountain, Xiao Junyan's expression changed slightly when he heard the voice. He said, Qing Emperor, other than to visit the Qing Emperor, I am here to see Cloud 7. If it is not convenient for the Qing Emperor to let me go up the mountain, can you let Cloud 7 go down the mountain? When the Qing Emperor heard that he was here for Cloud 7, he pursed his lips and said unhurriedly, You came at the wrong time. Cloud 7 is still in seclusion. Hearing this, Xiao Junyan frowned and asked, When will she come out of seclusion? He came thousands of miles and did not expect to see her in seclusion. This seclusion could be as short as 10 days to half a month, or as long as several years or even longer. Could it be that this trip was for nothing? He couldn't see her anymore. It's hard to say. The Azure Emperor's voice was neither cold nor warm. I have something here. I wonder if the Qing Emperor can pass it to the 7th cloud on my behalf. Xiao Junyan asked again. Emperor Qing, who was on the mountain, was displeased by his endless pestering. He looked down the mountain and frowned. Then, he called out coldly in a low voice. Xiao Yunyan. Perhaps Xiao Yunyan could hear the displeasure in Emperor Qing's voice, so she replied, I'm here. I don't like it when someone comes to disturb my disciple's cultivation, he said bluntly. His words clearly expressed his dislike for Yi Futian. Qing Emperor, I won't disturb his cultivation. I just want to see him. Xiao Junyan said again. Don't you understand what I'm saying? The Cyan Emperor said in a low voice, Leave. When she comes out of seclusion, I will tell her that you came to find her. Chapter 5164. Xiao Junyan, who was sent away, pursed his lips. He knew that since Emperor Qing did not allow him to go up to see Yunqi, he could not go up. However, he was unwilling to go back just like that. Therefore, he decided to wait at the foot of the mountain. After Emperor Qing sent him away, he picked up the book again and flipped through it. However, after flipping through a few pages, he could not understand anything. He put away the book, stood up and walked towards Yunqi's cave abode. Before he reached her cave abode, he saw Yunqin walking towards him. Master, however, bowed to him and said, I just came out of seclusion and was about to go to Master. Emperor Qing glanced at him and noticed the change in his aura. He relaxed his expression and said, It seems that you have made a breakthrough. Very good. Since you have come out of seclusion, I have something to tell you. Hearing this, Hao He looked at him and saw that he was looking in the direction of Yunqi's cave residence. He said, Is Master looking for junior sister? Actually, the three of us agreed that regardless of whether we have broken through or not, we will all come out of seclusion today. I think the two of them will also come out today. Oh. Hearing this, Emperor Qing raised his eyebrows. You have an agreement. Yes. Hao nodded and asked, Master said that you have something to tell me. What is it? Hearing his words, Emperor Qing said, since the two of them will come out of seclusion today, you go and wait for them. Call them over, and then I will tell them together. As soon as he finished speaking, he withdrew his gaze and turned to walk back. Yes. Hao responded. He felt a little strange but did not ask further. Instead, he turned and went to wait in front of his younger brother and sister's cave residence. The three of them had an agreement before they went into seclusion. Therefore, in the evening, Yun Yuan and Yun Qi also came out of the cave residence. Time passed quickly in the mountains. In a few years, they had grown a lot taller. They were no longer the little children they were back then but could be considered young men. Big brother. When Hao saw him, he ran over happily. Big brother, you have broken through again. Yes. Hao nodded and smiled when he saw her. I came out of seclusion at noon and waited here for you to come out so that we can go to Master together. I think Master has something to tell us. Could it be that Mother is here? Mu Chen, who was walking over, heard their conversation and asked. I don't know. Master didn't reveal anything. He only told us to go over in a while. As Hao spoke, he looked at the two of them and said, since you guys have both exited seclusion, then let's go over. I don't want to keep Master waiting. Okay. She nodded with a smile and said, I was going to come out early, but I took a bath and changed my clothes. After that, I've been wandering around until now. The three of them chatted and laughed along the way. Not long after, they arrived in front of their master's abode. Master, your disciple has brought junior brother and junior sister over. Hao said from outside the cave. Master. Master. Mu Qinhe. The two of them also called out. Compared to Mu Qin, they were more respectful. Hao, on the other hand, was all smiles. He even played with the ends of his hair and poked his head out to look into the cave residence. Come in. Emperor Qing's voice came from inside the cave residence. Chapter 5165. Master, disciple hasn't seen you for a long time. Did Master miss little Qi? As soon as you entered inside, she trotted forward, arrived at his side and hugged his arm. Then with a smile, she asked with her pair of beautiful eyes. No other reason, since childhood, her master had doted on her the most, and also treated her the best among the three of them. If there were any good things, he would always leave them for her. Occasionally, there would be some extremely rare spirit fruit, but her big brother and brother didn't have it, but she would absolutely have one. Therefore, even if her master always looked indifferent to everything, but she knew that her master treated her the best. And it was precisely because of this, so compared to her big brother and brother who were respectful and didn't dare to be impudent in front of her master, she was more casual and natural. Emperor Qing looked at the little girl, whom he had watched grow up, holding his arm and smiling. He said, sit down. I have something to tell you. Okay. You let go of his arm, then obediently sat beside him and looked at him. You two also sit. Qing Emperor hinted to the two who were standing to sit down. Yes. Both of them answered, then walked forward and sat down. Seeing there was a teapot on the table, Yu spontaneously started to brew tea for her master, then poured several cups, and separately served them in front of her master's two brothers. Finally, she also poured a cup for herself. Then like a little fox, she narrowed her eyes and drank the tea. Qing Emperor indifferently shot a glance at her, then said, a few days ago, your father Xianyuanmo succeeded in ascending. Ah. Yu, who was drinking tea, heard these words, she became happy, then her hand shook, and the tea spilled out and splashed on her hand. And when her hand was scalded, she instinctively loosened her hand, and the teacup also fell from her hand. Just as the tea was about to splash onto her body, a slender hand reached out and caught the teacup. After placing it on the table, he glanced at the back of her hand that was scalded red. He frowned slightly and scolded in a deep voice, "How could you be so careless?" Yu-er stuck out her tongue and said, "Master, I was too excited, but it's nothing, just scalded. Apply some ointment." Hao-er took out a bottle of medicine. When he was about to help her apply it, he saw that the medicine was taken away by their master. Seeing his master take the medicine and wipe the back of her hand, he asked, "Master, does this mean that our father has really ascended?" "Yes." Cyan Emperor answered. Then after helping Yu-er apply the ointment on her scalded hand, he said, "I reckon that they will come over to see you after a period of time." Hearing this, the three of them couldn't help but look at each other with big smiles on their faces. "That's great," Mu Qin said. "Master, how much do you know about my father's situation?" "Didn't he?" "Master is not clear about other matters. I only know that he has successfully ascended and everything is going smoothly. At that time, when you see them, you can personally ask whatever you want to ask." Finished speaking, he handed the medicine to Yu-er and instructed, "Apply it before sleeping at night." Okay. Yu-er answered with a beaming smile, then said, "Master, then can we go back? My father and mother have both ascended. Does that mean we can return to their side in the future?" Chapter 5166. Yu-er looked into his deep eyes. Hearing her master's words, she felt that if she didn't answer well, her master would be sad. Therefore, she thought for a moment and said, "I miss my parents, but I also want to cultivate with you." Emperor Qing looked at the little face in front of him and paused for a moment before saying, "Then wait for them to come and pick you up when they're done. At that time, you can go back with them. If you still want to come back to me, Cloud Sky Mountain will always be open to you." Hao-er and Mu Qin looked at each other and stood up. They cupped their hands and said, "Thank you, Master." As soon as he finished speaking, Hao-er said, "Master, I hope that I can always cultivate by your side. Not as our father, mother, and son, but as Yunqin." "Master, I feel the same," Mu Qin also said. Today, when he heard that his father had ascended, he was happy from the bottom of his heart, but he also knew that his father and mother were very strong, very powerful experts. As their child, he also hoped that he could become very strong and let everyone know of his strength, so that when others mentioned him, they would say that he was the son of the Yama Lord and the Phoenix Master. Yu-er heard their words and immediately said, "Master, I also feel the same." Emperor Qing looked at the three of them and said, "I know what you're thinking. When you first came under my tutelage, I told your mother that here, no one will ever know that you're Fengzhou's children. Here, you're only my disciples. Now, your appearances are different from your original appearances. Even if you appear in front of others in the future, no one will suspect your identity." Yu-er touched her own face, and said with a beaming smile, "Speaking about it, I have almost forgotten my appearance, but my current appearance is so beautiful, so my original appearance is definitely even more beautiful." The Qing Emperor glanced at her when he heard this. A smile flashed through his eyes as he said, "There's one more thing. Some time ago, your mother killed 3 emperors by herself. Her name can be said to have shaken the entire upper immortal world. With this incident and your father's ascension, I reckon that there won't be many people who will dare to go against them in the future." I knew that my mother and father were very strong," Yu said with a smile. "In the future, I will definitely be as strong as them." "Master, don't you think so? The prerequisite is that you cultivate well." Emperor Qing glanced at her and said, "Master, don't worry. I will cultivate well and listen to your words, she promised with a smile. However, thought for a while and said, Master, if our father just ascended, is it not very appropriate for us to go back now? Do you plan to go back by yourselves? Emperor Qing asked. Hao Er and Mu Chen looked at each other and said, Master, why don't you take us there? If we go there as your disciples, we shouldn't attract any suspicion or attention. Also, since our father has already ascended to become a great emperor, the other great emperors will definitely be there, so... Chapter 5167. Hearing his words, Qing Emperor thought for a moment, then looking at the three of them, he said, If you follow Master, then you won't be able to stay there for too long. Then Master can also stay there as a guest for a period of time. Yu said with a smile. Qing Emperor paused for a moment, then said, All right then. At that time, Master will bring you there, but before that, tell your mother that there's no need for them to come and pick you up, Master will bring you there. Okay. The three of them looked at each other and smiled, then responded in a crisp voice. There's one more thing. Qing Emperor looked at Yu and said, There's a person called Xiao Zhenyan who came to look for you, but when you were in seclusion, Master chased him away. He also didn't come near and just waited at the foot of the mountain. Do you want to see him? Or not? Xiao Zhenyan. Yu was startled, then thinking for a moment, she asked, Is it that Big Brother Zhenyan? Big Brother Zhenyan. Qing Emperor didn't open his mouth, but Hao and Mu Chen at the side coincidentally repeated what she said, their voices slightly raised, and their brows slightly wrinkled. Obviously, they weren't used to it, and also didn't like it. Other than them, their younger sister actually called other people Big Brother. Qing Emperor indifferently glanced at his two disciples, then silently took a sip of tea, and didn't say anything. Yu didn't expect that the reaction of these two people would be so big. Seeing their calm faces and wrinkled eyebrows, and their four eyes staring at her, she smiled embarrassedly and explained, It's that time when I secretly sneaked out, didn't I go to that heavenly emperor's immortal island? At that time, I met him there, Xiao Zhenyan, the young master of Xiao family. He is older than me, and also very good to me, so I called him Big Brother Zhenyan. Why did this person come to look for you? You didn't tell him whose daughter you are, right? Mu Chen furrowed his brows and asked with a straight face. He stared at his sister, worried that someone might have designs on her. No, absolutely not. At that time, I only told them that my name is Yun Qi, and my master is Qing Emperor. Afterwards, I stayed there for several days and left. It has already been several years, if Master didn't mention him, I would have almost forgotten him. So, I also don't know why he came to find me, really. Yu hastily said, fearing that they wouldn't believe her. Emperor Qing was holding a teacup and gently blowing at it. He was scraping the tea leaves and drinking it unhurriedly as if he didn't hear the three of them talking. Right now, father and mother's reputation in the upper immortal realm is extraordinary. If people find out that you're their daughter, it's hard to guarantee that those people won't have any ill intentions. So, you must not let anyone know your identity. Also, don't get too close to this Xiao Zhenyan. Mu Chen put on the airs of an elder brother and lectured with a straight face. I know, I will definitely not let anyone know that my mother is Fengjiu, and my father is Yama Lord. Yu hastily promised, and said with a beaming smile, but Big Brother, this Big Brother Zhenyan is actually very good to me, really, at that time, he took care of me. But later on, when I left, I didn't even say a word to him. Now that he came to find me, it's possible that he wants to meet me. I should be able to meet him, right? After all, he came from afar. Chapter 5168. Emperor Qing put down the teacup in his hand and looked at her. Since you want to go, then go. But the two of them have to go with you. He looked at his two disciples. Looked at her master, then at her two brothers. She thought for a while and nodded. All right then. It's already dark today. Go tomorrow. I need to rest. You guys can go back too. Emperor Qing gestured for them to return to their cave abode. Yes. The three of them answered and left. After the three of them left the cave abode, they walked back to the stone table outside the cave abode and sat down. They took out their communication jade tablets and sent messages to their mother, asking about the matter and the matters of returning. Not long after, they heard the news from their mother. The three of them listened carefully and secretly noted it down. After a while, after replying to the message, the three of them began to discuss. Mother said that she will invite the strong cultivators from all over the world to gather in a few days. Then we can take this opportunity to go back. But I reckon that father and mother will be busy these few days. We should be able to leave in a few days. Hao looked at the two of them and said. Then let's tell master about this news tomorrow. Mu Qin also spoke up. Rolled her eyes and said, Mother said that many people will be invited to the banquet held for father's ascension. Even the other reclusive great emperors will be invited. Won't it be very lively then? She thought that if it was really as her mother had said, then brother Junyan's family would probably be there as well. We have already told mother. When the time comes, we will go as master and disciple. There will be many people and eyes, so we have to be careful of our words and actions. Otherwise, people will notice something strange. Hao instructed. Big brother, don't worry. I know. Mu Qin nodded and said. Of course I'm not worried about you. I'm just worried. He looked at He said helplessly. Hee, big brother, don't worry. I promise that there won't be any trouble. Promised with a smile. However, the two of them did not really believe her promise. The three of them chatted here until late that night before returning to their cave abodes to rest. The next morning, when she came out of the cave, she saw that her two brothers were already waiting outside. She blinked and looked at them with a smile. Big brother, why are you up so early? Aren't we going to meet that Xiao Zhenyan? We'll go with you, Mu Qin said as his gaze fell on her. Today, she was wearing a sky-blue dress with the deity striking whip at her waist. Her black hair was combed into two braids that fell in front of her chest. At the end of her hair, there was a ribbon of the same color as her dress, tied into two beautiful bows. Her ink-black hair was adorned with two sky-blue ribbons. She looked like she had put in a lot of effort into dressing up. Even though the face she had now was not her original face, she still looked very beautiful. Mu Qin wasn't the only one who noticed her special outfit today. Even Hao noticed it. Hence, his gaze fell on her as he sized her up. Chapter 5169. Hearing her words, Hao and Mu Qin looked at each other and said in unison, "This is not good." "Ah. Is it not good?" Yu looked at them in surprise, then looked at the dress she was wearing and said, "This is the dress mother prepared for me, and this is a new one. Why is it not good?" "I think it looks pretty good. It's too eye-catching," Hao said and looked at his sister. He felt that the little girl had specially dressed up to meet that guy surnamed Xiao, and he felt uncomfortable. "And, it's too eye-catching," Mu Qin also said seriously. He looked at her seriously and said, "I think you should just wear your usual clothes. Also, don't tie that flower on your head. It doesn't look good." "Is that so? I don't have a lot of flowers. Then should I go back and change?" She looked at the two and asked. And go back and change. The two said in unison. Seeing that both brothers said it was not good, she thought for a while and obediently walked back to the cave, saying, "Then wait for me, I'll be out in a while." After watching her enter the cave, Mu Chen's handsome little face tensed up and said, "Big brother, I don't like this Xiao Junyan." Why did he feel that someone was snatching his sister away from him? This guy surnamed Xiao, he already didn't like him before he even met him. How said with a sour tone, "You are specially dressed up to see that guy surnamed Xiao. Why didn't she dress up for us when she saw us?" The two brothers complained in front of the cave until they saw you come out, and then they shut up. "Big brother, how do I look? It's not eye-catching, right?" You walked forward with a smile and opened her arms to give them a twirl. The pink dress was not new, but it was not old either. It still fit her very well. Compared to the smart and refined sky blue dress, she looked cuter and more charming in this pink dress. No matter how you looked at it, it was beautiful. You is good looking. She looks good no matter what she wears. Hao said with some helplessness in his tone. "Sister, come here." Mu Chen beckoned to her. "He's here." Seeing this, Yu trotted forward and arrived at their side. Beaming with smiles, she asked, "Am I okay like this? Can we go down the mountain?" Mu Chen reached out and removed the two small beads on her hair. "You don't have to wear any more. You look good like this. It's clean, simple, and pleasing to the eye. This pearl hair clip was bought by mother for me. Usually, I am not willing to wear it," Yu said. Looking at the hair clip taken down by her brother, she truly didn't know what he was doing. The pearl hair clip was a girl's thing, so he couldn't wear it. "Keep it, you can wear it later." Mu Chen handed the hair clip back to her and said, "Remember to change the way you address me after we go down the mountain." I know. Yu answered. While putting away the pearl hair clips, she followed them down the mountain. Sitting on a rock at the foot of the mountain, Xiao Junyan was resting with his eyes closed when he suddenly heard someone calling him. He couldn't help but open his eyes. Brother Junyan. June. Chapter 5170. Little junior sister, just call him Big Brother Xiao. Mu Chen said, glancing at his sister beside him. I also feel that Big Brother Junyan is too intimate. Hao also said. Hearing this, Yu looked at the two of them and blinked. No one knew what she was thinking, but she suddenly smiled and said, "Okay, I'll listen to Big Brother and Second Brother." Big Brother Xiao. Big Brother Xiao, where are you? I'm Yunqi. She changed the way she addressed him, and her voice contained spiritual power, reverberating in the air. Earlier, she felt that her two brothers were strange, so it turned out that they were jealous. I'm here. Xiao Junyan followed the voice and saw Yunqi, who had come all the way to the foot of the mountain. After not seeing her for a few years, the chubby little girl had grown taller and her figure was also slimmer. She already had the appearance of a young girl. She wore a simple pink dress, but it made her look charming and sweet, very likable. Big Brother Xiao. Seeing him, Cloud 7's eyes lit up. She hurriedly jogged forward and arrived in front of him. She sized him up curiously and said, "Big Brother Xiao, you seem to have grown taller and stronger. You even look better than before." Hearing this, Xiao Junyan's lips curled up, and a smile flashed across his eyes. I haven't seen you for a few years. You've grown up." As he spoke, he looked at the two people behind him and asked, "They are?" "Oh, they are my big brother and second brother. I came out of seclusion yesterday and heard from Master that you came to look for me. Today, I came down to look for you." My two senior brothers were worried about me, so they followed me. She said with a smile. After looking at them, she said, "You definitely don't know my two senior brothers, right? Come, let me introduce them to you. This is my big brother, Yun Chen. This is my second brother, Yun Yuan. They are very good to me." As she spoke, she looked at the two and said, "Big brother, second brother, this is Xiao Zhenyan, the young master of the Xiao family. His family's ancestor is Great Emperor Xiao Tian. Their family is also very powerful." Hao Er and Mu Chen nodded slightly at him as a form of greeting. Although Xiao Zhenyan did not like to interact too much with strangers, but seeing that they were Cloud 7's two senior brothers, she cupped her hands and said, "Although I have not met the two of you before, but I have long heard of your names. Since we have met today, why don't I be the host and invite you to a restaurant in the city for a gathering?" "Good, good. I also want to go to the city to eat a good meal," Yu said. Hearing this, Hao Er said, "Since that's the case, then let me be the host and play the role of host. Young Master Xiao, please." He was already a young man. His actions and words were naturally different from when he was young. Since they were going to invite him, he had to be the one doing the inviting. Xiao Zhenyan's eyes flashed as she looked at him and said, "All right." After saying that, she followed them into the city. After not coming to the city for a few years, the most excited one upon entering the city was Yu Er. She looked left and right and bought a lot of snacks on the street. Along the way, she wandered around before arriving at a restaurant in the city. The few of them booked a private room. After the dishes were served, Yu Er drank water and asked, "Big brother Xiao, why did you come to find me? Is something the matter? Or did you just happen to pass by here?" Chapter 5171. After I came back, I didn't go out again. Master has always let us cultivate in the mountains. The three of us only came out yesterday, Yu said, and her eyes flashed. "Oh right, I heard from Master that another great emperor has ascended. He will send out invitations. At that time, Master will bring the three of us to join in the fun and broaden our horizons. Big brother Xiao, are you going? It's that Yama Lord, the husband of Empress Phoenix Master, ascending to celebrate, right? I haven't received any news from my family, so I'm not sure if I'm going or not," Xiao Zhenyan said, knowing that such a celebration banquet was not something that anyone could attend. Even if it was their Xiao family, if they wanted to visit another great emperor's immortal island, they had to send an invitation first. Since he didn't go back, he naturally wouldn't have such an invitation. Hao Er and Mu Chen drank tea and listened to the two of them talking, but they didn't say anything. In their minds, they were thinking, when will Master bring them? The two of them chatted, and when Xiao Zhenyan saw that there was nothing on her head, he took out a box from his space and gave it to her. "I bought this on the way here. It's a gift for you." "Aw. You even brought me a gift." Yu Er was slightly surprised, and after taking a glance at him, she hesitated for a moment, then took the box that was handed over by him. After opening the box, two beautiful pearl hair clips were quietly lying inside the box. The flowers of those two pearl hair clips were weaved using small pearls, and each of them were suffused with luster, which was very beautiful. So beautiful. "Thank you, big brother Xiao." Yu thanked him with a smile. At this time, when he saw that she had accepted Xiao Zhenyan's gift, Hao reminded her. "Little junior sister, you are a girl. You can't casually accept gifts from others, especially from men. And it's best not to accept things from others. What do you want? What do you like? Senior brother can buy it for you." Mu Chen also said, implying that he didn't want her to accept other people's gifts. "It's just two pearl hair clips. It's not anything valuable." It's okay, Xiao Junyan said, looking at the two of them. Inexplicably, he felt that they seemed to have some kind of hostility towards him. And this feeling was very strange. Yu looked at her two elder brothers, then looked at Xiao Junyan. Finally, she thought for a bit and pushed the box back. My senior brother doesn't want me to accept it. I don't think I'll accept it. Looking at the pearl hair clips that had been stuffed back into her hands, Xiao Junyan shot a glance at the two of them, the corners of her mouth twitching slightly as she asked, speaking of which, I still don't know what the two of you are from. You guys aren't going to chat anymore. If you don't want to talk, we'll go back first. Mu Qin said and looked at his sister. Let's eat first, Xiao Junyan said as she picked up some food and placed it in her bowl. Yes, yes. Senior brother, we should at least finish our meal before we leave, right? Come, senior brother, eat this. Yu beamed as she picked up a piece of meat and placed it in his bowl. She also picked up a piece for Hao. Seeing this, the two of them didn't say anything more. They just accompanied her to finish the meal, paid the bill, and went back. Xiao Junyan accompanied her all the way to the foot of the mountain, then said, This is my communication jade tablet. You keep it. If there's anything in the future, we'll contact each other again. Okay. Yu replied and also handed over hers to him. This is mine. Chapter 5173. Ling Hua, bring me to greet Mo Qin, Fengzhou instructed with a smile. Yes. Ling Hua responded and came to his side. He said to Mo Qin, Gongzi Mo Qin, let me show you around. I know a place where you can see the surrounding scenery at a glance. Okay, Mo Qin responded and nodded to the two of them before leaving with Ling Hua. Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou looked at each other and walked out hand in hand. When they arrived at the main hall, they saw Emperor Qing sitting in the hall drinking tea while the three children stood behind him. Seeing the three children, Fengzhou's eyes softened and were full of love and joy. After not seeing them for a few years, they had all grown up a lot, especially Hao. He could already be said to be a proper youth. After Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou entered, their gazes fell on the three children and they were slightly surprised. If she hadn't mentioned to him earlier that the three children weren't using their original appearances, it probably wouldn't have been easy to recognize them. Back then, when they were by his side, they were all so small. Now, they were all so big. Ling Hua stood guard outside the main hall while the others retreated and did not allow anyone to come close. Therefore, there were only a few people in the large main hall. Father, mother. As soon as the three children saw them, they called out happily and trotted over to them. Yu directly threw herself into Fengzhou's embrace, while Hao and Mu Qin stopped in front of them and respectfully cupped their hands in greeting. This child greets father and mother. Good, you've all grown up. Xianyuan Mose sighed in his heart. Looking at his two sons and his daughter in Fengzhou's arms, his heart was full of pride and joy. His children had all grown up, but he always seemed to have missed their growth. He was not a good father. Father, you miss his father and mother. Yu again came out from Fengzhou's bosom, and threw herself into his bosom. Hugging him, just like a kitten, she rubbed against his bosom. Daddy misses you too. Xianyuan Mose's voice was low with a hint of sobbing. How have you been all these years? Father, we are living very well. With mother and master here, we are all very well. Father doesn't need to worry about us. Moreover, we have all grown up, we can protect ourselves. Yu raised her head in his bosom, and said to her father, who was somewhat emotionally fluctuating. Even though they hadn't seen each other for many years, their father was still their father. He was still the father who loved them dearly. Now that their father had ascended, their family could be together in the future. Alright, sit down and talk. Fengjiu smiled and looked at Emperor Qing. Long time no see. These 3 children have troubled you all these years. They are this emperor's disciples. It is my duty to discipline them, Emperor Qing said faintly, looking away from Xianyuanmo's and drinking tea. Thank you, Emperor Qing, for accepting them as disciples and keeping them by your side to protect them. Xianyuanmo's held Yu's hand and walked to Emperor Qing to express his gratitude. Chapter 5174. Qing Emperor, it's rare for you to come here. This time, you should stay here a little longer. Fengjiu said with a smile. Then, he added, we invited people from the Master Chef clan to cook. Qing Emperor, you can have a taste of their cooking. I don't have much to do in Cloud Sky Mountain. This time, even if you didn't mention it, I would have stayed here a little longer. As Qing Emperor spoke, he put down the teacup in his hand and stood up. He said, it's rare for your family to reunite. I won't disturb you. Seeing this, Fengjiu called out, Ling Shuang, take Qing Emperor to rest. Yes. Ling Shuang, who was outside, answered and led the way. After he left, Fengjiu said to the 3 children, come, tell father and mother, what have you learned in the past few years? The 3 of them talked about the things that had happened in the past few years in the main hall. It was rare for the family to gather together, and there seemed to be endless things to talk about. Early in the morning 2 days later, guests came from all over the place. Early in the morning, Du Fan led people to the fairy island to welcome the guests into the island. Everyone who came in had an invitation in their hands, and their strength was at the sovereign level. Each of them brought 1 or 2 juniors with them. Du Fan welcomed the guests at the entrance of the fairy island, while Ling Hua made arrangements inside. In addition to settling everyone to their seats, there was also the registration of gifts. Although there weren't many people, there were fairies transformed from flowers and fairies transformed from red-crowned cranes. Du Fan and Ling Hua made arrangements for all aspects. The division of labor was clear and orderly. As expected of the Yen Emperor and the Phoenix Master's fairy island. Look, such a fairyland can only be seen here. Yes. I've been to many places, but I've never seen a fairyland-like place like this. It's really worth it to be able to come here today. This fairy island is surrounded by fairy chi. Look, there's a rainbow bridge over there. It's really an eye-opener. Many people have come today. Even the human sovereigns who haven't come out for a long time are here. Of course. Who wouldn't want to take a look at an invitation from the Yama Lord Fengjiu? Moreover, I heard that Chef God Song's family was invited to this banquet. Looks like everyone is in for a treat today. Ha ha ha, let's not talk about the food. Just being able to come to this immortal island is already worth it. By the way, I heard that Xingdi and Qingdi are here as well. I didn't expect these 2 great emperors to come as well. What do you know? I heard that the Holy Emperor, the Phoenix Master, and the Yen Emperor have been friends for a long time, but it is unexpected that the Qing Emperor would come. He usually doesn't like this kind of excitement. Now that he has come, I wonder if the other reclusive great emperors will come. Chapter 5175. Who's that young man beside Great Emperor Xiaotian? It looks extraordinary. An immortal monarch said as he probed in a low voice. He must be a descendant of Great Emperor Xiaotian. Otherwise, why would he bring him to this banquet? And I heard. What did you hear? The surrounding people couldn't help but ask softly when they saw the immortal monarch stop talking. The immortal lord looked around and whispered, I heard that a few great emperors are interested in marrying the children of the Yama Lord and the Phoenix Master. I don't know if it's true, but I reckon that since Great Emperor Xiaotian is here, the other hidden great emperors will be here as well. Just as they were speaking, they heard a loud commotion behind them. They retreated to the side and saw two old men and a middle-aged man walking over together. Hearing the greetings of the immortal monarchs in the surroundings, it seemed that the three of them were all great emperors. Other than the middle-aged great emperor who brought a young man and a young woman with him, the two old men didn't bring any juniors with them. They chatted and laughed as they walked in. "Look, another three are here. How many great emperors are there in the upper immortal realm? How many people had come? The Yama Lord and the Phoenix Master are indeed famous. Even these great emperors who haven't come out for a long time can't sit still anymore." The few of them chatted as they walked in. There were many small long tables in the spacious area. The sovereigns had already taken their seats and were eating fruits and drinking wine while chatting. As for the great emperors, they were led to the front of the hall where they were seated at specific locations. Sitting beside Emperor Xiao Tian, Xiao Junyan looked around silently, trying to find Emperor Qing in Cloud 7. However, after looking around, she did not find the person she was looking for. "Junyan." Great Emperor Xiao Tian took a sip of tea and called out, "Here." He lowered his gaze and replied respectfully, "Do you remember what I said to you?" Great Emperor Xiao Tian asked. He didn't look at him and continued to drink his tea. The seat of the great emperor was quite a distance away from the seats of the sovereigns, and the space was large enough. Therefore, no one could hear what they were talking about due to the chaotic chatter around them. Xiao Junyan paused for a moment and said, "Old ancestor, don't worry. I will do my best and not embarrass you." It's just that. Hearing his words, Roaring Sky nodded with satisfaction. Unexpectedly, Roaring Sky paused and asked, "But what?" "It's just that, old ancestor, I think it's better to let nature take its course. Sometimes, it's not good to force things. Besides, she's the daughter of the Yama Lord and the Phoenix Master. Moreover, I heard that their family went through a lot of hardships and finally reunited. I don't think it's too early to mention." More importantly, he did not want to marry someone he did not know, even if the other party was the daughter of Yen Di and the Phoenix Master. However, he couldn't say that out loud. Great Emperor Xiao Tian sipped his tea and glanced at him. "What do you think of your trip to see Emperor Qing's disciple?" Xiao Junyan was stunned. "What do you mean?" Chapter 5176. Xiao Junyan's eyes flashed and she said, "I've never asked. I only know that she is the little disciple of the Qing Emperor. As for which clan she comes from, I don't know. The Qing Emperor has always liked peace and quiet. In the past 1,000 years, I've only heard that he had taken in one disciple. Later on, his disciple failed to advance and died. It's not that no one wanted to send the younger generation of the clan to the Cloud Sky Mountain to be his disciple, but he didn't take a fancy to any of them. So when they found out that he had taken in these 3 disciples, many people were really curious. Where did these 3 people come from? It's a pity that no one could find out about their clan and background." As the Roaring Sky Emperor spoke, he took a sip of the tea in front of him and said, "However, there are also people who guessed that these 3 people must be from an extraordinary clan. Their talents may also be very heaven-defying. Otherwise, the Qing Emperor wouldn't have thought of taking them in as his disciple. It's just that." He paused and looked at Xiao Junyan and said, "No matter how extraordinary they are, they can't compare to the daughter of the Yama Lord and the Phoenix Master. Do you understand? Old ancestor, Yun Qi is still just a child." Xiao Junyan said lightly. Compared to him who was almost 20 years old, Yun Qi who was less than 10 years old was just a child in his eyes. He didn't deny that he had a good impression of Yun Qi, but this good impression was just pure love and not mixed with any romantic feelings. After all, no matter what, he wouldn't fall in love with a child who was less than 10 years old. For so many years, he had been longing to see her because the two of them had interacted before. Moreover, she was the only person who he wanted to get close to and interact with for so many years. He didn't care about other people's gazes and only did things according to his heart. But he didn't expect that the people in the clan, and even the old ancestor, would think that he had feelings for Yunqi. He was a grown young man and Yunqi was just a child in his eyes. She was just like the chubby and naked child he had pulled out of the water back then. She hadn't changed even after so many years. Liking someone and wanting to get close to someone didn't mean that he had fallen in love with her, right? He just felt comfortable being with her and didn't think much about other things. Hearing his words, the Roaring Sky Emperor didn't say anything more. Who could say for sure? However, all these years, ever since his parents passed away, he didn't care about anything and was indifferent to everyone. Only that little girl called Yunqi cared about him. He had been thinking about her all these years. However, since he said that he didn't have that kind of intention, it was fine. Old ancestor. Xiao Junyan called out. He tilted his head slightly and looked at him. Xiao Junyan looked at him, her expression serious as she said, "The wife that I marry in the future, will only be someone that I admire, and not because of status or anything else." Great Emperor Xiao Tian looked at him deeply and didn't say anything. He looked away and saw a figure he hadn't seen for a long time. Xiao Junyan followed his gaze and saw the Qing Emperor walking over slowly with 3 disciples behind him. When he saw Yunqi, who was dressed in blue, his gaze softened and he revealed a smile. Although this girl had gradually grown up, but in his memory, she was still that sly and mischievous chubby baby. He was so much older than her, how could he have any thoughts about her? The old ancestor and the others were really worried for nothing. Chapter 5177. The Roaring Sky Emperor had already stood up and stepped forward. He smiled and cupped his fists. "Emperor Qin, long time no see. I heard that you have taken in 3 disciples. These must be them." As he spoke, his gaze fell on the 3 people behind him. The Emperor Qing smiled faintly and said, "I didn't expect to see Elder Xiao here. It has been many years." As he spoke, he turned slightly and gestured to the 3 people beside him, "Come forward and greet the Roaring Sky Emperor. Yun Qin. Yun Yuan. Yun Qi. Greetings, Roaring Sky Emperor." The 3 people stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Good. The Emperor Qing smiled and looked at the 3 of them. He casually took out 3 fist-sized luminous pearls and handed them to them, saying, "Here are a few pearls. Take them and play with them." Seeing this, the 3 of them looked at their master, unsure if they should accept it. "Since it is a gift from the Roaring Sky Emperor, take it," the Emperor Qing said. "Yes." After they responded, they stepped forward and took the pearls. They bowed to the Roaring Sky Emperor, saying, "Thank you, Roaring Sky Emperor. Speaking of which, this Yunqi is also fated to be with our Xiao clan. Back then, he even went to our Xiao clan's fairy island and got to know Jun Yan there. This time, this child came out and went straight to Cloud Sky Mountain, saying that he wanted to see our little friend from back then." As Roaring Sky Emperor spoke, he looked at Xiao Junyan and said, "What are you waiting for? Come and greet the Emperor Qing." As he spoke, he said to the Emperor Qing, "Emperor Qing should have met him already, right?" Xiao Junyan greets the Emperor Qing. He stepped forward and bowed. The Emperor Qing glanced at him and nodded. He said indifferently, "There are many talents under Elder Xiao. The young master of the Xiao clan has an extraordinary aura and cultivation." "Ha, you flatter me. Speaking of which, the 3 disciples of the Emperor Qing have such cultivation at such a young age. It is obvious that they are extraordinary. I wonder, what kind of aristocratic family can raise such outstanding juniors? I just met them when I was traveling. I took them in and taught them. They are not worth mentioning. The Azure Emperor changed the topic and said, Old Xiao, it has been a long time since we last met. You should take this opportunity to drink a few more cups. Ha ha ha, of course, of course. Come, take a seat. Grand Monarch Howling Sky gestured for Qin Nan to take a seat. As for the people of the younger generation, they were seated behind the two of them. Not long after, another 3 great emperors came. The 2 great emperors started chatting with the 3 great emperors. As for the 2 great emperors who came with them, they also sat in the last row. Sitting in the last row, even though they were only around 10 years old, they knew that everyone present had extraordinary backgrounds. Their seniors were either great emperors or their ancestors. Therefore, after everyone sat down, they began to chat and greet each other. Are you Cloud 7? I heard that your master gave you a very powerful deity-beating whip. Is it the one on your waist? A young girl around 12 or 13 years old looked curiously at the whip on Cloud 7's waist. Yunqi looked at her and saw that she had an oval face. Her hair was combed into a ponytail that covered her forehead. Under her curved eyebrows were a pair of beautiful phoenix eyes, a tall nose, and small red lips. She looked like a natural beauty. Chapter 5178. Because she was hugged by her 2 brothers, she was sitting in the middle, so the one who was separated from Xiao Junyan was her brother Mu Qin, and the one who was separated from this big sister was her big brother. When she stretched out her hand to hand over the whip, her big brother took it and handed it over to that young girl. That young girl saw the youth wearing black clothes handing over the whip, and couldn't help but look at him, and at the same time receiving the whip, she said, I am called Mei Zhuxin, I came with my family's old ancestor, this is my elder brother, Mei Zhubai. The youth at the side looked towards them, and slightly nodded his head, and his gaze also sized up There was no other reason, because here, other than his younger sister, she was the only little girl, moreover, she was a little girl who was not even 10 years old. This is my eldest senior brother, Yun Chen, this is my second senior brother, Yun Yuan, and him, he is Xiao Junyan, Roaring Heaven Emperor is his old ancestor. Yun Qi was half lying on the table, and said to her, Yun Qi, I have never left the island, but I have also heard of you. I heard that your master Qing Di treats you very well, and even gave you this god-striking whip as a weapon for self-defense. I have always heard of this whip, but today I have the opportunity to see it. I didn't expect this whip to be so beautiful, Yun Qi, your master is really good to you. She said with envy, and touched the whip with one hand, and after looking at it for a good while, she handed the whip back. Of course, my master loves me the most. Yun Qi said with a beaming smile, and putting the whip back on her waist, she said, You usually can't leave the island. I thought only we are like this. My master made us go into seclusion to cultivate, and didn't let us come out to play. I haven't left the island, but my elder brother came out. Our family has a rule, only 15 years old can leave the island to gain experience. This time, because Yamo Lord and Phoenix Master are holding a banquet here, we have the opportunity to come out with our old ancestor. She said, then looking all around, she said, to be honest, this place is much more beautiful than our island. Isn't that right? I also feel that this place is very beautiful, just like a fairyland. In my master's Cloud Sky Mountain, there are mountains and trees everywhere, just like a deep forest, but here is different, everywhere is beautiful, and there is also a rainbow bridge, do you see it? Yue said with a beaming smile, and her heart was very happy. Because this was her home. Xiao Junyan saw that she was chatting non-stop the moment she met her little friends. He had originally wanted to have a good chat with her, but he couldn't get a word in edgewise. Moreover, he didn't know why, but he had a feeling that Yunqi's two senior brothers didn't seem to like him being too close to Yunqi. While the people here were chatting, Imochen also came not long after. She sat down not far from Emperor Qing and the others, and behind her were Feng Yi and Zhao Yang. Little 7. Feng Yi called out and waved at Cloud 7. Seeing him, Cloud 7 blinked. This was their granduncle. Even their mother had to call him little uncle. However, it seemed a little too old to call him granduncle. He didn't look much older than them. Little 7, don't you recognize me? When Feng Yi saw the little girl blinking her eyes at him, he couldn't help but smile wickedly. He got up and walked towards the three of them, sitting down beside them. Look, what did I bring for you? While speaking, he took out a paper bag from his space. When he opened it, there was a roasted chicken inside. Chapter 5179. This is not an ordinary roast chicken. I went to the kitchen and asked me, to make it. Feng Yi said as he tore off a drumstick and handed it to her. I've seen it. I don't think the dishes will be served so soon. Eat something to fill your stomach first. That's not very good, right? Hao was a little hesitant. Master is still sitting in the front. It didn't seem very good for them to eat at the back. It's fine. Why don't you follow me? I know a place. As he spoke, he quickly wrapped up the roast chicken and waved at them, indicating that they should follow him. Seeing this, the three of them looked at each other. To be honest, since granduncle asked them to go, they seemed to have no choice but to go. Moreover, it was Sister Mi's roast chicken. They were craving it. Then we'll be back soon. Yunqi stood up and said to Xiao Junyan and the Mei siblings. The three of them then quietly left. Xiao Junyan looked at their departing figures and was a little surprised. Why did they look so familiar? Feng Yi brought the three of them to a corner and waved his hand to set up a soundproof barrier. He smiled and said, Do the three of you still recognize me? We recognize you. You're Feng Ye's granduncle. Yu said with a smile. Little Yu, you've already grown so big. When I saw you earlier, your mother told me not to reveal your identity. It seems you're the same as me now. While speaking, he handed the drumstick to Yu and said, Come, eat first. Chen how, tear it yourself. I specially asked me, to make this spiritual chicken. It's very fragrant. After saying that, he tore off a wing and ate it. Seeing this, Mu Chen and Hao, tore off a drumstick and a wing respectively. The few of them sat there and chatted while eating. Let me tell you. The great emperors who came today didn't have any good intentions. They all came for the marriage of their children. Look at all of you, you're still so young and you're already being targeted. Feng Yi said and tore off another piece of meat to eat. Hearing this, Hao Mu Chen, and Yu were startled. They looked at each other and asked, Granduncle, what children are you talking about? What other in-laws could they be? My family is the three of you. Those juniors sitting behind the great emperors are all here to show their faces in front of your parents. Then, he smiled proudly and said, This is the news I heard when I came here. Not only them, but the other sovereigns also have the same idea. It's just that they don't dare to mention it. However, the great emperors will probably mention it. Looking at the three people's shocked expressions, he smiled and said, But you don't have to worry. Your parents won't marry you so quickly. Hearing this, the three of them finally relaxed. Hao said, They're wasting their efforts. He knew that their parents would not casually arrange a marriage for them. Even if they wanted to arrange a marriage, they would have to get their consent first. Mu Chen, on the other hand, did not speak. She did not know what he was thinking as he stared at Yu. Brother, why are you looking at me like this? Yu looked at him in surprise and asked. If Great Emperor Xiao Tian proposes marriage for Xiao Junyan, will you agree? Mu Chen asked with a serious face, his eyes fixed on her. Ah. Chapter 5180. Feng Yi listened to their conversation and stared at them for a while. Suddenly, he laughed and said to Hao and Mu Chen, Yu is not even 10 years old yet. How would she know anything about love? You two are worrying too much. At this age, how could she know anything about love? It was too early to tell these little brats this. All right. Hurry up and eat. After eating, go back and sit down, in case they can't find you later, Feng Yi said and finished the meat in a few bites. He took out a handkerchief and wiped his hands and mouth clean. After the few of them finished eating and returned to their seats, Xiao Junyan saw Cloud 7 looking at her strangely and couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" Yun Qi stared at him for a while, then shook her head and said with a smile, "Nothing." As she spoke, she turned to look in front of her. Coincidentally, she saw her father and mother coming out. Her gaze also landed on the two of them. She saw her father wearing a low-key yet luxurious black robe. The collar and sleeves of his robe were embroidered with golden dragon patterns, while her mother was wearing a simple yet dazzling red robe. She could not help but smile until her eyes narrowed. She said, "So beautiful." Hao and Mu Chen's gazes also fell on their parents. Seeing them walking slowly with their arms linked like a perfect couple, a smile appeared on their faces. So beautiful. Their parents were so compatible and so pleasing to the eye. When the two of them walked together, the whole world paled in comparison. They are so compatible. They are a match made in heaven. Mei Zhuxin, who was at the side, also spoke. Her eyes lit up as she looked at the pair of people walking slowly towards them. Xiao Junyan's gaze also fell on the two people walking slowly in front of them. He had also heard many legends about them. Every one of them was a major event that shook the world. He looked at the two of them. Other than seeing their rare looks, he also saw the powerful aura emanating from them. The Phoenix Master, who was dressed in red, was holding the Yama Lord's arm. There was a faint smile on her beautiful face. Her aura was restrained, as if it had reached the realm of nothingness. No one could sense her strength or cultivation level. They only knew that this aura was very powerful. The Yama Lord, who was beside her, was dressed in a black robe embroidered with golden dragons. He was low-key yet domineering. He did not restrain his aura. Instead, he exuded it naturally. As he swept his gaze across the crowd, the pressure of an expert swept across the crowd. It was sharp and intimidating. He was like a king inspecting his territory and looking down at his people. His gaze made people lower their heads involuntarily, not daring to look him in the eye. This was the first time he had seen this pair of legendary experts. He only knew that they were so powerful that they made people feel small in front of them. At this moment, everyone stood up. When the Yama Lord and the Phoenix Master stopped in their tracks, they respectfully saluted them. "Greetings to Yen Di, Phoenix Master." The voices sounded in unison. When everyone finished saluting, they looked up and heard the voices in front of them. "Everyone, there's no need to be so polite. Please take a seat." Xianyuan Mose gestured with his hand. With one hand, he led Fingzhou to the main seat and sat down. When the others saw them sit down, they also sat down. Chapter 5181. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly raised their wine glasses and returned the toast. Let us toast to Yen Di, congratulations on your ascension. After everyone saw him raise his head and gulp down the wine in one gulp, they also downed the wine in their hands. The immortal maidservants shuttled back and forth to serve the dishes. Plates of exquisite dishes were placed on the small long table in front of everyone. They listened to the conversation between Yen Di and Feng Zhu, who were sitting in front of them, and drank a little wine. The originally somewhat restrained atmosphere gradually became lively. Everyone, there is no need to be too restrained. Today, everyone is free to eat, drink, and chat. As Feng Zhu said, he clapped his hands and a fairy maiden came over on a cloud. She spun around and landed on the open space in front of them and danced. Waves of pleasant music also sounded. At this moment, everyone looked at each other, raised their wine glasses and chatted with the people around them. In front, Xiaotian Great Emperor was chatting with Xianyuan Mose and Feng Zhu. He took the opportunity and smiled. Yen Di, Phoenix Master, this time I brought a junior over. He is the young master of my Xiao family. I haven't had the chance to let him greet the two of you. As he spoke, he glanced behind him and called out, Jun Yan, quickly come forward and greet Yen Di and Phoenix Master. Xiao Junyan, who was called out by his own old ancestor, was originally talking to Yun Qi. When he heard the old ancestor calling him, he immediately stood up and walked to his old ancestor's side. He bowed respectfully to the two people in the main seats. Xiao Junyan greets Yen Di and Phoenix Master. Feng Zhu knew about Xiao Junyan. Back then, his girl accidentally went to the Xiao family's immortal island and got to know him there. According to Xiao Junyan took good care of her. So, Feng Zhu smiled and said, raise your head and let me see. Hearing this, Xiaotian Great Emperor's eyes lit up. Seeing that his junior was still in a daze, he hurriedly shouted, Jun Yan, what are you waiting for? Xiao Junyan paused for a moment before she raised her head. Feng Zhu carefully looked at the young man in front of her. He should be around 18 or 19 years old. His appearance was very outstanding, but he looked like a cold person. If her daughter didn't say that he took good care of her and treated her very well, it would be hard for her to imagine that this young man who exuded a cold aura could be a person who loved children. Xianyuan Mose had also heard from Feng Zhu about how Yu had snuck out that year. Hence, he had also heard from her that this Xiao Junyan had taken rather good care of her. At this moment, he understood why Feng Zhu had asked him to raise his head. It was only because he wanted to see what kind of person this person that his own daughter called Big Brother Junyan was. His child was indeed outstanding, but this young man also had an extraordinary bearing. The young patriarch of the Xiao family is indeed extraordinary. Feng Zhu praised with a smile and asked a few more questions. Xiao Junyan also answered them one by one. When Xiaotian Great Emperor saw this, he laughed so hard that his eyes couldn't be seen. Qing Emperor at the side glanced at Xiao Junyan and then at Xiaotian Great Emperor who was laughing so hard that his teeth couldn't be seen. He then narrowed his eyes and raised his wine cup to drink. Not far away, the middle-aged Great Emperor saw this and was secretly anxious. When he saw that Feng Zhu had asked Xiao Junyan to return to her seat, he immediately smiled and said, Emperor Yan, Phoenix Master, Lao Mei, have also brought a pair of juniors to pay respects to the two of you. As he spoke, he hurriedly motioned for the two juniors behind him to come forward. When the two juniors saw this, they nervously stepped forward and bowed respectfully to the two people at the main seats. Mei Zhu Bai. Mei Zhu Xin. Chapter 5182. Xianyuan Mose and Feng Zhu looked at each other and smiled, no need to be so courteous. Feng Zhu smiled when she saw how nervous the two juniors were. Elder Mei, you're so lucky to have such outstanding juniors. Their futures will be limitless. The middle-aged great emperor smiled happily when he heard Fingzhou praise the two juniors. He didn't care if she was being sincere or just being polite. He said, "You're too kind. I heard that Yen Di and Phoenix Master's son and daughter are the truly outstanding ones. If the two of them get to know each other in the future, I would be more than happy to do so." Fengzhou smiled and said, "They're still in the lower immortal realm. But I think there will be a chance in the future." As she spoke, she smiled and said, "This time, I've also prepared a greeting gift for the juniors." "Ling Shuang," she called out. "Yes." Ling Shuang stepped forward with a tray in his hand and distributed the gifts to the children. It was an exquisite little box. They didn't open it after receiving it. They just put away the gifts and stood up to thank Fingzhou. As for the great emperors who didn't bring their juniors, Fingzhou asked Ling Shuang to give them 2 boxes each. Although no one opened the boxes to see what she gave them, everyone was very happy to receive the gifts. The juniors were overjoyed to receive the gifts, while the great emperors felt that although Fengzhou was powerful, she was courteous to her guests and treated them equally. She wasn't a difficult person to get along with, so they were slightly relieved. The great emperors weren't the only ones who received gifts. Even the sovereigns who came received gifts from Du Fan and Lang Hua in return. The banquet lasted for a day. When the sky gradually darkened, the sovereigns left one after another. However, the great emperors and their juniors, Xianyuanmos and Fengzhou, asked them to stay for a few more days. When the sky was completely dark, Du Fan, who had sent the sovereigns away, let out a sigh of relief and went back. Inside, Lang Hua and the others were already dealing with the aftermath of the banquet. In the kitchen, the Song father and son finally had time to sit down and rest after being busy. Let your father and brothers rest for a while. Just leave the rest to us," Lang Hua said, and let her take her father and brothers to rest. After all, although this banquet was said to last for a day, they had prepared for a long time. "Okay, I'll go take a look in the kitchen." Mi-er replied and went to the kitchen to see her father and brothers. Some of the sovereigns who left found a place to open the gifts given by the Phoenix Master. When they saw that it was a pill that couldn't be bought with money, they couldn't help but gasp. Hiss! It's actually a pill of this level. What? Is it a pill? Let me see mine. When a sovereign heard this, he hurriedly took out his gift and opened it. When he saw it, his eyes widened. It's really a pill. It's a supreme grade pill that can help one advance. Chapter 5183. Don't tell me the Phoenix Master refined this herself. I heard that she was known as the ghost doctor in the lower immortal realm. One of the sovereigns whispered, his eyes shining brightly. If the Phoenix Master refined this herself, it would be absolutely pure and without any impurities. This kind of pill is priceless. Wow! How generous! How many sovereigns have come? She's giving out a pill every time. Really? One of the sovereigns was speechless, feeling his heart boiling. If they had used this pill themselves, it would have helped them break through 1 or 2 levels. But if someone in their family took it, they would probably be able to give birth to a sovereign. Thinking of this, their hearts were burning with excitement. A sovereign! If a family had another sovereign, its power and strength would be unimaginable. At this moment, the sovereigns who held the gifts were excited. They carefully kept the pills in the space and quickly rushed back to their families. At the same time, on the Immortal Island. In the guest house, the middle-aged great Emperor Lao Mei and 2 other elders were gathered together to talk. Did you see the gifts? There are supreme grade pills inside. Lao Mei said excitedly, there are 2 small bottles in one box. One bottle contains a top-grade elixir that can help you advance to the next level, and the other contains a life-saving elixir that can treat internal injuries. This gift is not light at all. Hearing this, the 2 elders looked at each other and also took out the gifts from Fengjiu. They thought that since it was a gift for the younger generation of their family, it would be the same for them to go back and look at it. But after hearing Lao Mei's words, they were curious. When the box was opened, it was as he said. There were 2 pills inside. Astonishment appeared on the 2 old men's faces as they said, these 2 pills are not ordinary pills. Even the pills in my family's collection do not have such pill veins and medicinal fragrance as these 2 pills. This kind of pill is hard to find outside. These pills are probably refined by Fengjiu. Other than her strength, her alchemy skills are unparalleled. I heard that her pills are priceless. The other old man said as he looked at the 2 pills in front of him. He carefully put them away and said, I didn't expect that the first thing he did would be such precious items. I heard that all the sovereigns who came to the banquet were given a gift in return. It was also an elixir, but it was an elixir that could help one level up. Lao Mei said excitedly, it would be great if we could become in-laws with them. It's a pity that I didn't get to see their child this time. Speaking of which, it's strange. If they could really travel between the upper and lower immortal realms, why didn't they bring their children here? With their current strength and reputation, the experts from all sides wouldn't be foolish enough to make an enemy out of them. What do they have to be afraid of? The old man said doubtfully. Who knows what they're thinking? However, there will eventually be a chance to see it. The child of Yen Di and the Phoenix Master is destined to not be an ordinary person from birth. Indeed. They nodded and said, it's rare for us to come here, and we were even invited to stay here for a few more days. This time, we must take a good look around. You can't help me set the marriage. Seeing this, Fengjiu chuckled and said, little girl, I'm just teasing you. Did you forget what your father said just now? We won't help you set the marriage unless it's your own wish.
Chapter 5185. Mother, I've grown taller, so I've become thinner. Actually, I still have some meat on me. Her daughter said seriously and even pulled her hand to her waist. If you don't believe me, you can see that my waist is full of meat. Fengjiu touched her daughter's waist and couldn't help but laugh. He reached out and flicked her forehead. That's enough, child. You're already a big girl. You can't say things like touching my waist if you don't believe me. Hee, I know. Her daughter replied with a grin. These few days, the great emperors and their juniors will be staying here. You guys should be more careful. After they leave in a few days, there won't be any outsiders here. After everything here is settled, we'll go back. You guys haven't seen your grandfather and the rest in a long time, Fengjiu said to the 3 of them. Okay, we got it, they replied, then thought for a while. Their daughter asked again, Mother, is granduncle coming back with us? He just came here not long ago. We won't be bringing him back. Now that they're cultivating in the immortal sect, it's a good thing for them to temper their temperament. As Fengjiu spoke, he was still worried. Your granduncle is unreliable. You guys can't learn from him. Okay. The 3 of them looked at each other and smiled. Their granduncle was only a few years older than them. When they interacted with him, they were like little friends. In front of them, he really didn't act like a granduncle at all. At this moment, Hao gently tugged at Mu Chen and his daughter's sleeve. Then he said, Father, Mother, we'll take our leave. Father, Mother, rest early. They had been busy entertaining guests the whole day. They were probably tired. Hearing this, Zhangjiu thought. She quickly withdrew from her father's arms and said with her brother, "Father, Mother, we'll go back first. You guys rest early too." Go ahead." Xianyuan Mose looked at the three of them and nodded. A gentle smile flashed across his deep black eyes. Fengjiu smiled as he watched the three of them leave and close the door behind them. He sighed with emotion and said, "In the blink of an eye, the children are all grown up. How time flies." Xianyuan Mose wrapped his arms around her and pulled her into his embrace. He said, "It's already late. We should go to bed." As he spoke, he stood up with her in his arms and walked towards the bed in the inner room. Fengjiu chuckled and reached out to hug his neck. He leaned over and whispered in his ear. No one knew what he said, but Xianyuan Mose's deep voice was heard. He said, "If Furen is tired, go to sleep first. Leave the rest to your husband." Hearing the laughter and whispers from inside, Ling Shuang, who was standing guard outside, quietly left the courtyard. She looked up at the moon in the sky and smiled faintly. The night was perfect. In the room, the couple's love was strong. The next day, after breakfast, Hao went to the kitchen.
Only me was busy in the kitchen. She looked around and saw that there was no one around, so she went up and called out, "Sister Me, Ah. Little Seven is here. Have you eaten? Do you want to eat some more?" Me stopped and looked at the little girl. Chapter 5186. These are wontons. I used fresh spirit beast meat and seasoning to make them. Do you want to eat them? I'll cook a few for you to try. As she spoke, she had already started cooking. I want to give Master a change of taste so that he won't get tired of eating porridge every day. That's right, you said you want to send food to your master. She took out a bowl and seasoned it while looking at her. Do you want to let your master try this? My master doesn't have the habit of eating breakfast. When he was on the mountain, he didn't eat anything. When he came here, I saw that he didn't eat much for the past 2 days. Last night, he only drank wine and didn't eat much. So I thought if big sister Me has anything good to eat here, I'll send some over to my master. She said with a smile. She watched as Me pushed the bowl over. There were a few wontons in the bowl with soup and steam coming out of it. Even though Me was already full, she couldn't help but swallow her saliva when she smelled it. I know it smells good just by smelling it. If I knew big sister Me was cooking this, I wouldn't have eaten dessert today. Me sighed faintly. She scooped up a spoonful of soup and ate another wonton. Her eyes couldn't help but light up. How is it? Isn't it delicious? Me was very confident in her culinary skills. Looking at Me's satisfied expression, she couldn't help but smile happily. It's really delicious. I think my master will definitely like it. She said with a smile. Big sister Me cook a big bowl for me. I'll send it to my master to eat. Alright, wait a moment. I'll cook it for you. Song Me said with a smile. She took out a big bowl and put some wontons into the pot to cook. She said, this can't be left for too long. If it's too long, it won't taste good. When you send it over later, tell your master to eat it while it's hot. If he likes it, tell me later and I'll cook it for him. Alright, thank you big sister Me Me thanked her with a smile. No need to be so polite. Song Me said with a smile. Me waited in the kitchen as she chatted with Me Only when a bowl of piping hot wontons was placed in the food box did she say, Big sister Me I'll send this to my master first. I'll look for you to play later. Alright, be careful. Don't burn yourself. Me instructed. Got it. She waved her hand and strode out of the kitchen, heading straight for her master's courtyard. Xiao Junyan saw her on the road and saw that she was carrying a box of food in her hand. She was still walking carefully, as if she was afraid of spilling the food inside. Xiao Junyan called out, "Yunqi. Did you hear that?" She stopped in her tracks and looked towards the source of the voice. Seeing that it was Xiao Junyan, she smiled and greeted him, "Good morning, big brother Xiao. I was just about to look for you," Xiao Junyan said as she walked towards her. "Ah. Are you looking for me? Is anything the matter?" As she asked, she saw him looking at her as if he had something to say, so she said, "Big brother Xiao, how about this? I'll look for you later. I was just about to send breakfast over to my master. This won't taste good if it's left for too long." Hearing that, Xiao Junyan nodded and said, "Then I'll wait for you at the Rainbow Bridge." "All right, then I'll look for you later. I'll leave first." She waved her small hand and said with a smile. Only then did she carry the food box and continue walking forward. Chapter 5187. Air carried the food box to the courtyard. She looked around but didn't see her master, so she called out, "Master." The door opened, and the Qing Emperor walked out slowly. He seemed to have just woken up, and there was still a sense of laziness on his body. He glanced at Yunqi, then slowly walked to the stone table in the courtyard and sat down. "Why are you here?" When they arrived here, his 3 disciples flew around happily like birds that had been set free. If they hadn't come to visit him at a certain time every day, he would have thought that he was the only one who had come to this immortal island, and not with his 3 disciples. Air carried the food box forward with a smile and said crisply, "Master, I saw that you didn't eat much last night and only drank wine, so I brought you breakfast." As she spoke, she opened the food box and took out the wontons inside. "Master, this wonton is delicious. Sister Mi made it, and it's fresh out of the pot. Try it." The Qing Emperor glanced at her and saw that she was like a little bee, circling around him attentively. She took out a small bowl from the food box, scooped some wontons into the bowl, and brought it to him. "Master, try it. It's delicious." Air leaned on the side and looked at him with a smile. Only then did the Qing Emperor start to eat. His actions were elegant and noble, as if the wonton in front of him was not a small bowl, but a delicacy. Yunqi watched from the side. When she saw that he had finished the wontons in the small bowl, she hurriedly scooped a few more into his bowl and said, "Master, you can't not eat breakfast. Although you have already abstained from eating, these are all spiritual food. It's good for your body to eat it. And it's delicious. Master, why don't I be responsible for bringing you breakfast in the future? You have to develop a good habit of eating. You can't eat one meal after another. This won't do." The Qing Emperor quietly ate his wontons and listened to her nagging. When he heard her words, his hand paused slightly, and his expression was dazed for a moment. He closed his eyes and continued to eat without saying a word. This scene came and went quickly. Even Yunqi, who was nagging at the side, didn't notice his strange behavior at that moment. She rubbed her chin and said, "Master, I'm still so young and those great emperors already want to get their juniors engaged to me. Fortunately, my father and mother said that they won't arrange a marriage for the 3 of us unless we agree to it ourselves. Master, why do those great emperors want to use their juniors for marriage? It's so pitiful to be a junior in their family." The Qing Emperor finished all the wontons in the bowl before putting down the spoon. He wiped the corner of his mouth and said slowly, "With your father and mother's current prestige, the 3 of you have been targeted even before you appear. If they can use the marriage to achieve their goal, they will naturally not let go of such an opportunity. Hearing this, Sun said, so Big Brother and Big Brother also said that it's better to stay on Cloud Sky Mountain. This way, no one will know our identities and no one will have any ideas about us. Who said that no one would target you just because you are my disciples? Emperor Qin glanced at her and said, do you know how many people are secretly investigating your background? Chapter 5189. Startled, she thought for a moment and said, that's right. Master said that we all have to focus on cultivation. If not for the banquet this time, he wanted to bring us out to broaden our horizons, we would probably still be on the mountain right now. As she spoke, she looked at him strangely and asked, aren't you going back to your family? Xiao Junyan shook his head. I'm preparing to travel around and gain experience. So I wanted to ask you, do you want to come out with me? Ah. That? I don't think that's possible. As she spoke, she frowned and said, my master won't allow it. Although she also wanted to go out and travel, she knew that her master would not allow it and would not be at ease. Moreover, after they left this time, they still had to follow their father and mother back to see their grandfather and the rest. Hearing this, Xiao Junyan didn't say anything else. She just looked at the rainbow bridge, no one knew what she was thinking. Looking at him, she saw that he was clearly standing with her, and in such a beautiful place, but he looked very unhappy. That feeling of loneliness was something even she could feel. Hence, she thought for a moment and asked, Big Brother Xiao, are you unhappy? No. As Xiao Junyan spoke, she shifted her gaze away from the rainbow bridge and looked at her. I'm just a little disappointed. After so many years, you're the only person who makes me feel relaxed and comfortable. So when I'm going on a trip, I wanted to ask you. He sighed softly and said, I didn't think it through. Your master won't agree. Big Brother Xiao, don't you have a communication jade token? When my master agrees to let us go out and gain experience in the future, I'll send you a message. She raised her big smile and said, but if I go out, my 2 senior brothers will definitely follow me. Hearing this, Xiao Junyan revealed a smile. I know. Your 2 senior brothers are very good to you. If there's a chance in the future, let's travel together. All right. She smiled and agreed. Big Brother Xiao, it's rare for you to come here. Let me take you around. I know there are other places with good scenery. All right. Xiao Junyan agreed and followed her around. On the way, they met the 2 siblings from the Mei family. So Air called the 2 of them along. They stayed until the evening. Air smiled at the 2 siblings from the Mei family and said, actually, my master asked me and my 2 senior brothers to spar with you. Why don't we spar tomorrow? Hearing this, the 2 siblings from the Mei family looked at her. Spar with you? That's not a good idea, is it? In their opinion, she was younger than them, so it was not honorable to win against her. Hee, I'm definitely not alone. There are also my 2 senior brothers. But Big Brother Xiao, forget about it. He is much stronger than us. He looked at Xiao Junyan smilingly and said, however, Big Brother Xiao can be our referee. What do you all think? Of course. I also want to spar with your eldest senior brother. Mei Zhubai smiled and nodded. Then let's meet at the training field tomorrow morning. Air agreed. Then Big Brother and I will go back first. Yunqi, Big Brother Xiao, we'll see you tomorrow. Mei Zhuxin smiled and waved, leaving with her brother. Chapter 5190. The next day, the great emperors smiled when they heard that the juniors were going to spar at the martial arts field. They were curious about their skills and abilities, so they went to the martial arts field to watch the fun. Xianyuanmos and Fengzhou smiled when they heard that the three kids were going to spar with the two juniors from the Mei family. When they arrived, they saw that not only were the three great emperors there, but even Emo Qin and Emperor Qing were there. Feng Yi and Xiao Yang were there too. Emperor Yan and Phoenix Master are here too. An old man said, "We heard that a few juniors were going to spar, so we came over to watch the fun." They're discussing that the juniors from the Mei family will spar with Emperor Qing's disciple. Fengzhou smiled when he heard that. He looked at the young man from the Mei family and who was walking forward. He said, "Since that's the case, I'll give them some prizes. The one who wins will get a bottle of elixir as a reward." The great emperor's expressions changed when they heard that. They knew that Phoenix Master's elixir was of the highest quality. At this moment, the other two great emperors regretted not bringing their juniors along. "Eldest senior brother, you can do it." Hao shouted excitedly. "Eldest brother, you can do it." Mei Zhuxin shouted too. She said to Yunqi, "My eldest brother is very powerful. None of the juniors in the family are his match." Hao smiled. "My eldest senior brother is very powerful too." Her eldest brother had never lost to anyone in a fight before. The two people in the martial arts field cupped their fists and bowed. Then, they quickly attacked each other. Xianyuanmos, Fengzhou, and the other great emperors were watching from afar. They saw that the two of them were not using any weapons and were only fighting with their fists. Their movements and attacks were extremely fast. However, the great emperors like Xianyuanmos and Fengzhou could tell who was stronger from the first exchange. Emperor Qing has indeed taken in a good disciple. An elder said as he looked at Emperor Qing. This emperor's disciple naturally isn't lacking. His expression was indifferent, looking down on his emotions. Not long after, Fengzhou saw Hao sweep his leg and directly sweep his opponent down. Just as the youth from the Mei family fell, Hao had already stepped forward and half-pressed his leg on his body. His hands also restrained the youth's hands so that he could not rebound. "Good. Amazing. Ha 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 ha." Feng Yi was the first to shout. He clapped his hands again and laughed heartily. "Not bad indeed." "Yes. His movements and skills are indeed not bad." The other two old men also nodded and praised. When the great emperor of the Mei clan saw that, he stared at great Emperor Qing and said, as expected of great Emperor Qing's disciple, "He's really outstanding." The Azure Emperor said indifferently, "Not bad." Upon hearing this, the Mei family's great emperor felt his chest tighten. This person was as rude as ever. If his disciple was not bad, then what about his family's juniors? Emo Qin had a gentle smile on his face. He glanced at the laughing Feng Yi and said, "Great Emperor Qing's disciple is indeed not bad. Feng Yi, go up and ask him for advice." Ah! Feng Yi was stunned. He was still smiling a moment ago, but now he could not smile anymore. After letting go of the dejected Mei Zhubai, Hao was also stunned when he heard this. A look of hesitation flashed across his eyes. Chapter 5191. He couldn't help but look at his master. Seeing that his master didn't react, he looked at his parents. However, he saw a trace of ridicule and amusement in their eyes. "Yunqin, this is your reward for winning this round. Take it." Fengzhou waved his hand and a medicine bottle landed in Hao's hand. He said, "If you win this round, I'll give you another treasure." Hao was slightly taken aback. From what his mother said, did she mean that she agreed to this sparring match? Feng Yi rubbed his nose and walked forward. It seemed that he couldn't avoid it. However, he hadn't sparred with Hao Er before. He really didn't know how his strength compared to Hao Er's. Mei Zhubai stood up and patted the dust off his body. He glanced at Hao Er and then retreated to the side. He didn't expect to lose to him. He originally thought that he would definitely win, but he lost. He took a deep breath and told himself that it didn't matter. It was just a sparring match. You really want to fight? I'm telling you, I won't show any mercy. Feng Yi stepped forward and said. He looked at Feng Zhou and asked, then if I win, will there be a reward? Yes. Feng Zhou smiled. Okay, then come. Feng Yi glanced at Hao Er and cupped his hands meaningfully. He suddenly threw a punch forward. Hao Er saw his fist coming and immediately bent back to avoid it. At the same time, he kicked out, turned around, and threw a punch forward. The surrounding people watched for a while with different expressions. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two figures and said, looks like they're evenly matched. They were indeed on par with each other. As the two exchanged blows, their movements and reactions were both extremely fast. It was hard to tell who was better. Feng Yi, who was in the middle of the battle, restrained his sloppy expression and became very serious. Feng Zhou nodded secretly and said, I didn't expect the two of them to be so skilled. Hao Er and the others knew about it, but they had to admit that Feng Yi was really good at fighting. Fortunately, the two of them didn't have weapons in their hands. Otherwise, there would be a lot of noise when they fought. After fighting for about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the two of them were still unable to determine a winner. When the two of them punched out, a powerful force rippled out in front of them. Even the two of them were forced to take a few steps back. Just as they were about to step forward to fight again, they heard Xianyuan Mose's voice. Stop. The two men who were about to step forward panted slightly as they looked at him. It's a draw, Xianyuan Mose said as he looked at Feng Zhou. Yes, we're evenly matched. As she spoke, two items flew out of her hand and landed in their hands. This is your reward. Feng Yi looked at it and saw that his was a dark green flute with tassels at the end. It was very beautiful. He couldn't help but play with it in his hand. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. What kind of magic weapon is this? He asked curiously. He held the flute and wanted to try playing it. It can be used as an attack weapon. It can also be used as a flying magic weapon, Feng Zhou said. Thank you, Phoenix Master. Feng Yi smiled happily and cupped his hands at her. The people at the side watched and their eyes couldn't help but flash. Why was this Feng Yi also surnamed Feng? But from the looks of it, he shouldn't have anything to do with Feng Zhou, right? Thank you, Phoenix Master. Hao Er also cupped his hands and bowed. He put away the magic weapon his mother gave him. Who else wants to fight next? Feng Zhou asked with a smile. Chapter 5192. When Mei Zhubai heard this, he couldn't help but look at her in surprise. Then, he shook his head. No, you're too young. Although he had lost to her eldest senior brother, he wouldn't lose to her, right? Besides, how could a young man like him fight with a little girl who wasn't even 10 years old? That was too much of a bully. Let a young man spar with a little girl like you. Even if he wins, it won't be honorable. The great emperor of the Mei family shook his head as he spoke. Yinchi, why don't you just spar with Mei Zhubai's sister? You're about the same age. It's fairer to spar with her, Feng Yi said. He looked at the little girl from the Mei family and revealed an inexplicable smile. Actually, he felt that the little girl from the Mei family would be a match for him. She would definitely lose in a spar. Old Mei had lost to 2 juniors in a row. Would he be so angry that he would blow his beard and glare? As he thought about it, he couldn't help but look at the great emperor of the Mei family. She looked at Mei Zhuxin and finally shook her head. Sister Zhuxin is definitely no match for me. Really, I don't bully people. She had been training since she was young. Mei Zhuxin was not the same as her. How could she possibly be her match? As she spoke, she looked at Zhao Yang and said with a smile, "Why don't I spar with Brother Zhao?" When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but rub their foreheads. This little disciple of the Qing Emperor was also a troublemaker. Why did she pick someone older than her? The Qing Emperor glanced at his little disciple and didn't say anything. He let them decide for themselves. However, Zhao Yang shook his head. "I won't spar with you." He didn't dare to make a move. If he wasn't careful, it would be terrible. Xiao Junyan watched from the side and felt that it was a little strange. However, she didn't say anything and just watched quietly. In the end, it was Fengzhou who spoke up. "Let's spar with Mei Zhuxin." She even said that no matter who won, the 2 girls would get a reward from her. And the final result was naturally, "Let's win." Mei Zhuxin got a reward. When his son helped him up, he didn't know how he lost. In the end, it was Mu Qin and Zhao Yang. Mu Qin lost by half a move, and Zhao Yang won by a narrow margin. Fengzhou was very satisfied with this result, as he had already expected it. Zhao Yang originally had a pure yang body, so his cultivation speed was also extremely fast. Even if Mu Chen's talent was not bad, he was still slightly inferior to him in terms of age. After the sparring, Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou brought the great emperors to the front hall for tea. In the training field, Mei Zhubai looked at Hao and said, "Let's spar again. I'll definitely win." "Anytime," Hao said. He glanced at him and added, "I can beat you anytime." Mei Zhubai's fighting spirit was ignited when he heard that. He clenched his fists and said, "Not necessarily." Looking at the 2 of them. Then, he stepped forward and said with a smile, "Eldest martial brother, big brother Mei, how about we go to the back of the mountain and catch some wild animals to roast? Let's all roast the meat together." Mei Zhuxin's eyes lit up when she heard that. "Sure. Brother, let's go together." Seeing this, Mei Zhubai responded and followed everyone to the back of the mountain to catch some wild animals. Victory and defeat were common in battle. He believed that he would definitely beat him in the future. A few days later, Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou sent the great emperors off, including Imo Qin, Feng Yi, and Zhao Yang. Chapter 5193. Xiao Junyan didn't know what the old ancestor was thinking. He said, "Yunqi, I will return to the family with the old ancestor first before going out to travel. This trip may take a few years. If your master asks you to leave the mountain to travel, remember to send me a message." "Okay, don't worry, Brother Xiao. I will remember." The girl nodded. "Then I'll be leaving. Take care of yourself and take care of yourself," Xiao Junyan said, looking at her with some reluctance before returning to his old master's side. "Goodbye, Brother Xiao. Take care." The girl waved and shouted. After watching him leave with his old ancestor, she followed her parents and 2 brothers back to the palace. "Mother, why didn't you bring granduncle and the rest back?" the girl asked curiously. "They just came up not long ago. Let them go back to the immortal sect to cultivate first. There will be plenty of opportunities to go back in the future." This time, the main thing is to bring you back to see grandfather and the rest. Fengzhou touched the girl's head. The girl's head said. The Qing Emperor walked out slowly. Looking at them, he asked slowly, "When are you going back?" "Tomorrow." Fengzhou looked at him and smiled. "The Qing Emperor will be alone when you go back to Cloud Sky Mountain. Why don't you stay here first?" "Me, is in the kitchen. Du Fan and the rest will also stay here. The Qing Emperor can stay here for a few more days." "Okay." The Qing Emperor replied and turned to return to the courtyard. The girl looked up at her parents and said, "Father, Mother, I will go and talk to Master. We will be back for a long time. Master will not see me for a long time." Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou looked at each other and smiled at her. "Go." Seeing that his daughter had chased after her master, Xianyuan Mose then said to his two sons, "Come with me." Hao and Mu Qin hurriedly followed behind their father. Fengzhou went to the kitchen and called Mi to visit his father and brothers. He was going to give them some things. The next morning, Hao, Mu Qin, and the children returned to their original appearance, put on new clothes, and went to their master's courtyard to bid farewell. "Master, we're leaving. We'll be back soon. Go." The Azure Thearch's voice came from inside. The three of them nodded and left. Not long after, the Qing Supreme the Arch walked out slowly. He leaped to a high place and stood with his hands behind his back. He watched the little figure run towards her parents. A trace of gentleness and adoration flashed through his eyes as a smile bloomed on his lips. "Father, Mother." The three of them called out as they trotted towards them. Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou smiled at each other when they saw the three children walking towards them. After so many years, the children had grown up. All the joys and sorrows that they had experienced over the years flashed before their eyes. In the end, all that was left was the figures of the children running towards them and the smiles on their faces. They stretched out their hands and held the hands of the three children. Their faces also bloomed with smiles, revealing a happy expression. "Let's go. Let's go home." The morning sun shone on them, elongating the shadows of their family. An aura called happiness enveloped them, allowing everyone to feel their happiness and joy. The sun rose and illuminated the entire land. In front of the palace, contract beasts walked out one by one. Seeing their masters leave, they looked up to the sky and roared, as if cheering. In the sky, the fire phoenix spread its wings and soared in the sky. It raised its head and let out a cry. The cry of the phoenix reverberated throughout the sky and reverberated throughout the fairy island. Chapter 5194. In Cloud Sky Mountain. A girl in a light-colored dress didn't use her spiritual energy to move. Instead, she ran towards the highest peak of the mountain on foot. In front of her, a lion was running slightly faster than her. From time to time, it would turn back to look at her. "Master, you can't catch up with me," the lion said as it leaped dozens of meters away. Air widened her eyes and said, "I'm a two-legged person. How can I outrun you, who has 4 legs?" Her quick-witted eyes turned, and a trace of craftiness flashed through her eyes. The next moment, the spiritual energy in her body circulated, and her feet swept away like the wind. With a few sweeping steps, she ran in front of the lion. "Come on, let's see who's faster." Air laughed heartily as she ran up the mountain. Her laughter was crisp and pleasant, echoing in the forest. One person and one beast ran to the peak of the mountain. After about 30 minutes, they arrived at the peak of the mountain. When he saw the figure sitting cross-legged on the rock, a big smile appeared on his face. "Master!" She called out and ran to his side. That year, after she and her two brothers went back with her parents to see her grandfather and the others, they stayed there for a few months before returning. When they came back, their master had already returned to Cloud Sky Mountain, so the three of them also returned to the mountain. 2 years ago, her parents did not bring anyone with them. They did not know where the two of them went to travel, but they would occasionally send news to them. As for her elder brother, he also left the mountain 2 years ago. Now, he had made a name for himself outside. Only she and her elder brother stayed in Cloud Sky Mountain because their master said that they could only leave the mountain when they were 15 years old. Today was their 15th birthday. Her elder brother was still practicing in the back of the mountain, and she came to the peak of the mountain early to find her master. Back then, she had made an appointment with Big Brother Xiao to travel together, but after returning, she had never left the mountain gate again. However, Big Brother Xiao had come to see her a few times, and every time, he would bring her a lot of trinkets that he had bought during his travels. The Lotus Emperor sat cross-legged and looked at the scenery in front of him. Hearing his little disciple's joyful voice, he turned his head slightly and looked at her. The little girl in front of him had already grown up. She was no longer the chubby child from back then. She was slender and elegant, and her face was full of smiles. Her face could only be considered ordinary in the immortal world. It was not particularly stunning or beautiful. It was the kind of face that would be easily overlooked in a crowd. However, her unremarkable appearance, coupled with her crafty and intelligent eyes, made it impossible for people to ignore her even if they wanted to. After so many years of being by his side, she had never used her original face. If she showed her face, how beautiful would she be? His eyes flashed as he thought of the young girl in his memories. She was Cloud 7, whom he had picked up and taken in as his disciple. After all these years, he seemed to have gradually forgotten the appearance of his first disciple, Yun Qi. Her face seemed to have unknowingly become blurry. The only thing that remained clear was her every frown, every smile, and every laugh she made as she called out to him as her master. While he was in a daze, he heard a clear voice calling out to him. "Master! Master!" Chapter 5195. The Emperor Qing's expression changed slightly. It was as if the face in his memory had merged with this one, becoming exactly the same. She was still bending over slightly with a smile on her face as she called out to him in a crisp voice. "Today is your birthday. What gift do you want me to give you?" The Emperor Qing regained his senses and stood up from the rock. He clasped his hands behind his back and asked unhurriedly. Upon hearing this, she was stunned. She smiled and narrowed her eyes. She said in a crisp voice, "I'll like anything you give me, master." Any gift from her master, no matter how inconspicuous, was still good. The Emperor Qing glanced at her and flipped his hand. A box appeared in his hand. "Take a look and see if you like it." She hurriedly took the box and opened it. Inside was a dark green hairpin in the shape of 2 clouds. It didn't look like jade, but it felt warm in her hand. She looked at it curiously and couldn't bear to put it down. She smiled happily and said, "Thank you, master. I like this hairpin very much. However, it doesn't look like jade, but it's transparent and has a warm luster." "What kind of hairpin is this?" "This is a hairpin made from the mu accent of the 10,000-year-old green spiritual wood," the Emperor Qing said faintly. He glanced at the hairpin in her hand and his eyes flashed. "It's so beautiful. Master, can you help me put it on?" She looked at him with a smile and handed the hairpin in her hand to him. The Emperor Qing glanced at her and took the hairpin in her hand. He helped her put it in her hair. He saw that there was a touch of dark green in her silky black hair. It was transparent and warm, and looked very beautiful. Master, is it beautiful? She asked with a smile and looked at him with a smile. The Emperor Qing smiled and nodded slightly. It's beautiful. Thank you, Master. I knew it was beautiful. Master, you always give good things. I'll go and show it to my brother. She walked away happily, followed by the lion. A wisp of gentleness and adoration flashed through the Lotus Emperor's eyes as he watched that fairy-like figure descend the mountain, and an imperceptible smile appeared on the corners of his lips. He turned around and looked at the boundless sky as if he was thinking about something. Muqin changed into a new set of robes and was about to look for his master and sister when he saw his sister running towards him happily. Big brother, look. Is the present master gave me nice? She stepped forward with a smile and twirled in front of him. As she twirled, beautiful petals appeared on her skirt. The 15-year-old Muqin. His son was a head taller, and his aura was restrained and steady. He looked at the dark green hair in his sister's hair and asked, "Is the hairpin on your head a birthday gift from Shizhuan?" Yes. What do you think? Wasn't it beautiful? Master said that this hairpin was carved from the Mu Axayan of the everlasting green spirit wood. She said happily. She really liked the hairpin on her head. Muqin nodded and said, "It's beautiful." It was simple yet extraordinary. Moreover, the dark green luster made people feel very comfortable looking at it. Master gave you a birthday gift. Don't be careless and lose it. Muqin reminded her worriedly. This was a birthday gift from Shizhuan, and it meant a lot. Yes. I know. I won't lose it. Don't worry. She nodded with a smile. Chapter 5196. Both of you, come to my cave abode. Emperor Qing's voice traveled into their ears. They looked at each other and quickly walked to their master's cave abode. Master! Master! The two of them called out in unison, looking at Emperor Qing who was drinking tea. Yun Yuan, this is my birthday gift to you. Emperor Qing took out an item and handed it to him. Thank you, Master. Muqin reached out to receive it and thanked him respectfully. Today is your 15th birthday, and also the day you leave the mountain. All these years, I have taught you all that I can. You can only rely on yourselves for the rest. Emperor Qing said slowly. He looked at the two of them and said, in the future, when you are outside, you must be careful. If you encounter any problems or difficulties that you can't solve, you can come back to Cloud Sky Mountain to look for me. Hearing his words, the two of them felt a tinge of bitterness in their hearts. They looked at their master in front of them and nodded with reddened eyes. We will remember Master's teachings. They had been cultivating by their master's side since they were young. It could even be said that the time they spent with their master was much longer than the time they spent with their parents. Their master had never spoken about how good he was to them, but they knew in their hearts that their master's strict teaching and strict requirements were all for their own good. Now, they were going to leave the mountain, and they couldn't help but feel reluctant. What are your plans after leaving the mountain? Emperor Qing asked. The brother and sister looked at each other, and finally, they were speechless. Finally, the girl said, Master, Brother Xiao said that he wanted to travel with me, and I agreed. It's just that I haven't left the mountain all these years, so I have already sent him a message a few days ago. He will wait for us in the city. Muqin said, Master, my parents have not returned from their travels, so I also want to find a place to travel, but you don't want to go with them? Let's go together. Aw. Brother, you don't want to go with me? The girl was slightly surprised. She thought that he would go with her and Brother Xiao. Mu Qin shook his head. Now that you've grown up, you're no longer the little girl from back then. I believe that you'll be able to protect yourself and take good care of yourself. What's more, with Xiao Junyan by your side, you won't encounter any danger outside. That's why I want to go alone. Hearing their words, Emperor Qin glanced at the two of them and said, You've just left the mountain to travel. It's best that you don't stay in this world. Master, what do you mean? Air looked at him. There are countless large and small realms in this world. There are many places that you have not set foot in yet. You can go to other realms and have a look. Maybe you will find something different, Emperor Qin said as he flipped his hand and passed 2 items to the two of them. This is the Cosmos Teleportation Compass. With it, even if you're not strong enough, you'll be able to pass through the spirit formations of the various realms and go to places you've never been before. The two of them looked at it and said, Thank you, Master. Go ahead. I'm also going to start my seclusion. Emperor Qin said slowly, stood up, and turned his back to them with his hands behind his back. Master, when I'm not by your side in the future, you must take care of yourself and take good care of yourself. When I return from my travels, I'll come to see you. With that, the girl knelt down and respectfully kowtowed 3 times. Chapter 5197. Only then did they get up and leave the cave abode, heading down the mountain. After they left the cave abode, Emperor Qin turned around and walked out slowly. He pursed his lips and stood there for a long time until they disappeared from his sight. Xiao Junyan stood at the foot of Cloud Sky Mountain with his hands behind his back. Looking at the path up the mountain, his heart was filled with anticipation and joy. Today was Yunqi's birthday and also the day she left the mountain. After she sent him the news, he rushed over to wait for her here. When he saw the figure that appeared on the mountain path, his eyes lit up and he stepped forward. Little Qi, he called out. When he saw Yun Yuan beside Yunqi, he nodded at him and said, Yun Yuan, long time no see. As he grew older, he always felt that Yun Yuan was very protective of Yunqi, as if he was afraid that Yunqi would be snatched away by him. This made him a little suspicious. Could it be that Yun Yuan liked Yunqi? But as soon as this thought arose, he shook it away. He knew that he was overthinking. The way Yun Yuan looked at Yunqi did not have any romantic feelings. Mu Qin glanced at him and nodded. Brother Xiao. The girl ran forward with a smile and said, Why are you waiting here? Didn't we agree to meet in the city? Xiao Junyan smiled and said, I thought of coming here to wait for you first, then we will go to the city together. As he spoke, he saw the hairpin in her hair and his eyes flashed. Little Qi, is this hairpin new? It's very beautiful. Hee, this is a birthday gift from my master. I like it too. The girl said with a smile. Hearing him praise the hairpin in her hair, she was very happy. Xiao Junyan put the gift she was about to take out from her sleeve back into the space. This hairpin is very special. Master said that it was carved from Mu Axayan of this 10,000-year-old green spiritual wood. It's very rare. The girl nodded and said. Mu Qin glanced at Xiao Junyan and continued. Little junior sister, take care of yourself during this trip. If there's anything, remember to send a message to me and eldest senior brother. Second senior brother, aren't you going to the city with us? Air looked at him and asked. Mu Qin shook his head. No, you guys go ahead. I'll take my leave first. As he said that, he looked at Xiao Junyan and said, My junior sister will have to trouble young Master Xiao. Xiao Junyan was slightly surprised, but she still nodded her head. We'll meet again. Goodbye, second senior brother. She waved her hand and watched him leave on his flying sword. Only then did she look at Xiao Zhenyan beside her and asked, "Big brother Xiao, are we going to the city first?" I've already booked a restaurant on my way here to celebrate your birthday," Xiao Zhenyan said with a smile. "Let's go." "All right." His son agreed, and only then did he head to the city with him. In a restaurant in the city, in a side room, Xiao Zhenyan took out a box and said, "Little Seven, this is a gift for you. See if you like it." "Hee, thank you, big brother Xiao." She smiled and took the box. When she opened it, she saw that it was a rattan bracelet. She put it on and waved her wrist. "It looks good." Xiao Zhenyan smiled and said, "It's good that you like it. I used the spiritual blood vine to make it myself." Chapter 5198. "Thank you, big brother Xiao," said with a smile. Xiao Zhenyan smiled. Seeing that the waiter had served the dishes, he said, "Let's eat first. We'll talk after we're done eating." "Okay," replied. Looking at the dishes that were served, she couldn't help but smile. Although she had cooked for her master all these years on the mountain, her culinary skills were not very good. Especially after she got used to eating Sister Me's food, she felt that the food she cooked tasted even worse. Now that she saw the table full of delicious dishes, her stomach, which hadn't felt hungry before, began to growl. "Come, eat more." Xiao Zhenyan helped her pick up some food and said, "When I came over, I received a message from my family. They asked me to go over and settle some matters. Little Seven, come with me first. After I settle my matters, we'll go on a trip." "Okay." She nodded and ate. She didn't tell him that her master had given her a Qinquan teleportation compass. In her opinion, anywhere was a training ground. She hadn't left the mountain for many years, so it was good to follow him around. Hence, after the two of them finished eating, they didn't stay in the city for long. They left the city on their swords and headed in another direction. A few days later, Yunqi followed Xiao Zhenyan to a city gate. She raised her head and looked at the three big words on the city gate, Mountain View City. After the two of them entered the city, looked around. Looked around and said, "Big brother Xiao, go to your Xiao family's collateral family to settle some matters first. I want to walk around the city." Hearing that, Xiao Zhenyan glanced at her and nodded, saying, "Okay, if you're tired, go to the Xiao family in the south of the city to find me." "Okay," replied with a smile. After watching him leave, she walked briskly into the city. After staying on the mountain for a few years, she was very excited to see the bustling city. The hawkers on the streets were shouting non-stop. Some small trinkets were displayed on the side streets. People came and went. It was very lively. "Give me a stick of candied fruit." She came in front of the candied fruit and smiled at the red candied fruit in front of her. "Okay, miss, take it." The peddler took a string and handed it to her. He saw that she gave him a silver coin. When he was about to give the change, he saw that she had already walked away. He couldn't help but smile and shouted again, "Tanghulu, sour and sweet Tanghulu." Walking along the street, he bought a lot of snacks and put them into the space. When he passed by a tea house, he saw a lot of people gathered inside. From time to time, he could hear cheers coming from inside. Calmly, he stuck his head inside and looked inside. "Miss, would you like to come in for some tea and some reading?" The waiter at the entrance of the tea house saw her looking curiously and said, "This is one of the best tea houses in the city."
Not only are the refreshments delicious, but the stories are also good. "Miss, do you want to come in and have a seat?" Sure. Seeing that there were many people inside, he said, find me a place with a good view and not too crowded. That's easy. Miss, go to the second floor. The view is better there. The waiter's eyes smiled into a line. He eagerly led her to find a seat on the second floor and sat down. Miss, we have this year's new spirit tea. Would you like to try it? The waiter asked as he wiped the clean and shiny table.
Chapter 5199. The middle-aged man on the stage had a mustache and was holding a fan in his hand. He was probably thirsty from talking. After taking a sip of the tea on the table, he continued, at that time, when the Phoenix Master killed the 3 great emperors by herself, the territories of the 3 dead great emperors collapsed and the sky changed colors. Air held her cheek with one hand and smiled as she listened to the man on the stage talking about her mother's legendary battle with the 3 great emperors. She never got tired of hearing about the legendary deeds of her parents. She only felt proud and complacent in her heart. Those were her parents. In the future, she wanted to be like her parents and become a very powerful expert. Miss, these are the refreshments from our tea house. The waiter served the tea and refreshments before leaving. Air poured a cup of tea and sipped it. This spirit tea was really extraordinary. The moment she drank it, she felt that the spirit chi in her body was abundant. Her exhaustion was also swept away. She tasted the tea, listened to the story, and ate the exquisite teacup. She narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. Every time the middle-aged storyteller talked about something interesting, the guests in the tea house would applaud and cheer. Some people even threw money on the stage. She flipped her hand and imitated those people to throw a few gold coins on the stage. She didn't throw them on the stage, but they accurately landed on the table and folded into a small pile. When the middle-aged storyteller saw the gold coins falling from above, he couldn't help but be startled. Even the storyteller paused for a moment. He looked up at the second floor and saw the smiling girl on the second floor. He immediately held the fan in his hand and cupped his hands at her. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. Others would only give small pieces of silver as a reward. When they saw someone give a few gold coins, the guests on the first floor also looked at the girl on the second floor. They were a little surprised. They didn't expect that the person who gave the reward was a girl. However, seeing her extraordinary clothes, they thought that she should be a young lady from some family. They didn't pay much attention to her and continued to listen to the middle-aged storyteller on the stage. Which family's young lady is that? He doesn't look familiar. At a tea table not far away, a few men were talking. Their eyes fell on the girl in a light-colored dress. Which girl in the city don't we know? This girl looks unfamiliar. She's definitely not a girl from a family in the city. Also, look, she doesn't have anyone following her. She's probably traveling, right? Another man in luxurious clothes said. There was a hint of evil between his eyebrows. When he saw the girl they were talking about eating, he couldn't help but chuckle. It seems that she's quite delicious. Her temperament isn't bad, but her appearance is a little ordinary. This girl doesn't look like she has any experience in traveling. She just gave out a few gold coins as a reward. Look, it's only been a short while and someone has already set their eyes on her. Another man said with a smile, his hand gently tapping on the table. The man in luxurious clothes from earlier smiled evilly. He glanced at his companion beside him and teased, if that is the case, should the few of us wait for the hero to save the beauty? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.